Bear, it's been a big week for you here. I know you have decided to just bite the bullet and proclaim Aaron Rodgers the best quarterback ever.
Well, I don't know if he's the best ever, but
Well,
he's pretty good.
That's pretty much what you said last night.
I did say that, but, then I got to think about it. He had more toys to play with than Marino had. But, no, I mean, anyone that watched him last night, and that was kind of my thought on the whole thing, is an impartial observer, somebody that, I like the Packers, but it's not my fave or anything. He's really good. And to watch him play last night, you can tell, maybe than Tom Brady, who's certainly not as nimble as Rodgers, he's in a different league than everybody else is.
Yeah,
it's kind of scary.
It's really freaky. I mean, you do have to start maybe. I mean, if he probably needs another Super Bowl before he can really be in the greatest ever.
Yep.
But
he's in the top 5.
If he gets one, he's right in there, isn't he?
And it just shows you that had he been healthy last year at the end, especially in that Seattle game, if he doesn't have that calf injury, that game doesn't probably come down to an onside kick. I think they just beat them outright, and that's what a healthy Aaron Rodgers means. And I think right now, if you look at the first 3 weeks of the season, you may need not to play the rest of it. Just put New England and Green Bay in the Super Bowl and get it over with.
Well, hey, that's why they play the games.
That's why you play the games. That's right.
We'll talk a little more about the Packers, whether maybe they can go undefeated.
Right?
No, not a little early for that.
No.
High school football, week 7. Getting down to crunch time here.
Yep, playoffs pictures becoming a little clearer every week.
And for the state university teams, both Wisconsin and Whitewater around here, it's time to get into conference play. So
the Warhawks got challenged.
They did.
They were challenged.
You need one of those.
They played through it and won it.
We'll talk about all that football goodness coming up here on this episode of Extra Points. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Extra Points. The first, I don't know, are we going to call this an October edition, or is this going to get out before we get to October? All right, first October edition of Extra Points here. This is John Barry, sports reporter for the Gazette. I'm Eric Schmoldt, sports editor. You look distraught.
Yeah, tomorrow is September 30th.
All right.
So it'll be September.
Some people will be watching this for the first time in October.
If you're getting in Australia, it'll be October 1st.
Let's just start off with the Packers, where we talked about in the intro there. I mean, they really haven't looked challenged here in the first couple of weeks. I know the scores have been, sometimes they get a little closer at the end than the game might show, but 3-0 and just kind of cruising along here.
Yeah, and it's gotten to the point where, I think Devontae Adams went down with an injury the first play of the game last night. And, Montgomery steps in, scores. And, when you got number 12 back there, it's gotten to the point where maybe it doesn't matter who you have at receiver. And, obviously Eddie Lacy's not 100%, but Starks has been very capable. The offensive line, Balaga's out, but they've stepped up. So it's kind of they're in cruise control right now. And if you look at their schedule – with games coming up, they
Niners this week.
They could probably name the score there. But it's if you're a Green Bay fan, you got to be pretty excited about what's ahead and where this team's going.
I mean, defensively as well. I mean, the way that they've, I think everybody was like after week 1, wow, Matt Forte, they're just going to run roughshod over the Packers again all this year. Well, now they've faced 2. What have been pretty good running backs and slowed down Marshawn Lynch and Jamal Charles. And you start looking at that side of the ball and things are moving pretty good, and they don't even have Morgan Burnett in the lineup.
Right.
2 of the 3
And the
games.
one guy I look at still is Clay Matthews, because he's still to the point, they want to call him an inside linebacker, but let's face it, he still does a lot of freelancing, and his first step is so quick that, he's able to run guys down. He's able to anticipate what's going on. A couple of sacks last night, and if you watch him line up, he still has a lot of, freedom to do what he wants, and he's dangerous. I mean, he makes that defense go.
With Rodgers, I mean, the numbers are starting, they're in crazy mode now at this point at home. I mean, it's been 2.5 seasons basically since he's thrown an interception at home, a span of almost 500 passes. I mean, that's just dumb, right?
And you got to think, at some point there had to be a tip pass.
Right.
There had to be just a throwaway that got away from him or a ball that got away from him, and nothing. I mean, you think, look at last night. There wasn't anything close to an interception last night. Everything is spot on. He's laughing, he's smiling, he's moving freely. He's able to run, and Brady and Rodgers right now are so far ahead of everybody else in the MVP race that, again, like those two teams, it's kind of a two-team race and a two-player race right now.
It's kind of crazy to think about those numbers between interceptions. I think Brady had the record before, and it was like 263, and now Rodgers is at almost 500 passes.
Right.
I mean, what? That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And the funny part with Rodgers is he's gotten so good with his cadence of getting teams to jump off sides and players to jump off sides that when you watch him, he just automatically fires it in the end zone, and it seems like 70% of the time somebody's there to catch it for a touchdown, and he knows, well, if it gets picked off, they were off sides, we're going to get another play, we're going to get 5 yards, and he's just,
The Chiefs also had 10 days to practice for the hard counts and stuff.
And twice couldn't get the 12th guy off the field. Right. I mean, it's just, Rodgers knows. He looks around and sees, and like Gruden said last night, you got to run off the field. You can't jog off the field when the Packers are at the line of scrimmage. And both times, the Chief guy, he wasn't bearing down to get out of bounds.
I guess the contenders with them at this point in the NFC, the Falcons have looked pretty good.
But
coach.
I would like Green Bay. They'd be a double-digit favorite against the Falcons.
Especially, at this point, you'd be shocked if they didn't get home field advantage.
Right.
Throughout.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Arizona's interesting.
I think Arizona's the one team because when Carson Palmer plays, they win. I think I saw a stat where he's 18-2 as a starter when he plays.
But you got to keep him healthy.
You got to keep him healthy,
season.
which that's true with anybody. I mean, obviously when you see Rodgers the way he's playing now, he's got to stay healthy. I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, and for the Packers, you look at their schedule. It's not a daunting schedule by any means.
No.
They played some tough teams already.
Play at the Broncos.
I think Minnesota's improved.
Game.
Your Lions are terrible.
Terrible. Bears have traded out everyone already.
Can get the number one pick, and maybe the quarterback from Clemson or somebody, I don't know. But
when was the last time you saw an NFL team decide 3 weeks into the season that it's already over and just start trading people away?
Well, and that's just it. And I think John Fox is resigned to the fact that team's going nowhere. With or without Cutler, that's just a bad football team.
Sometimes you see it in baseball or something, but you don't see that in football.
No.
We're not even a quarter of the way into the season.
And Jared Allen was relieved because he said, now I can play again with my hand down, meaning, on the defensive end. And, he likes that. So good for Jared Allen. I mean, a guy that's paid his dues, and he can go to a winning team.
But, yeah, at Minnesota is the only NFC North game that I could see maybe there would be some trouble.
Right. And a guy like AP, who's given Green Bay trouble in the past, is still there. But, let's face it, Bridgewater and Rodgers, the huge disparity there. And I just think offensively Minnesota is still a little bit challenged, even with AP back. I mean, they lost to San Francisco, and San Francisco's not very good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They looked terrible against San Francisco.
Awful. One of the worst halves of football I've ever watched in my life between two teams.
That's why it's so boggling to me that they're even 2-1 at this point.
And they played well. They beat a decent San Diego team, and they're back to 2-1, but they're not in Green Bay's league, not yet.
We will keep tabs on that as we keep going along. Maybe these numbers. I mean, hey, there's no end in sight at this point, right?
Nothing.
How about the Badgers? I got to stop up at Camp Randall Saturday night. Kind of a boring game, to be honest with you. But, hey, a shutout's a shutout. So, and they're 3-1 heading into Big Ten play.
For you and I are guys that are, kept pretty close ties to that program. They have not played well offensively the last 2 weeks. And Joel Stave was terrible, I thought, against Hawaii. I mean, overthrows, underthrows, missed targets. Could he just once hit a guy in stride and so he can make some, yards after the catch? And we just saw the old Joel Stave. And fortunately, Hawaii wasn't good enough where it made a difference, and the defense has been rock solid for the last 3 weeks. But
they have 15 rushing yards?
Let's face it, Iowa's bringing in a much better team this Saturday, and Stabe's got to correct some things, or they're going to be in trouble.
I guess that's the question, and it's been asked a little bit this week. Are the Badgers still the favorite to win the division? I think everybody thought that they were head and shoulders above everybody coming in, but now Clement's out, and
Northwestern's playing well.
Northwestern's playing well, and Iowa's playing well.
Right.
I mean,
what do you think?
I
think all you need to know is if you look at the early line, the Badgers are an 8-point favorite. So that'll tell you something right there, that the pundits still feel like Wisconsin, it's their division to lose, and I would agree with that. I'm not sure they're going to run the table, and not lose a conference game, but I still think a one conference loss will still be good enough to win the West Division.
And make it back to the Big Ten title
Big
game,
Ten
get throttled
title
again,
and play Ohio State and be a 53-point underdog.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're resigned to being, though.
Yeah. But hey, let's get back there first, and if we do, we're probably guaranteed of another Capital One Bowl or the Outback Bowl, which it's money in your coffers, and that's what it's about.
The defense. I mean, Caputo, now that he's back, obviously the leader there. The guy that impressed me on Saturday was Chris Orr, the freshman.
Yeah, Chris Orr played well, and Beagle and Schobert have been real good too. And that's the thing with Wisconsin. I think with Aranda being there as long as he has, he's got that system in place where he wants it. And you can also tell Tanner McAvoy makes a difference as well, especially
both ways.
Both ways. I mean,
they showed it on Saturday that they let him come in and run some plays.
Yeah. So
why had no answer?
Again, what they played in the last few weeks, maybe they haven't had to show everything, and I think the playbook, they may open it up a little bit more. I still expect to see that jet sweep at some time because that's a play that's been so effective for him in the past, but maybe that's just not part of Chris' arsenal, and that's something he likes to do.
They ran it, I think, once.
Did they run it once?
Yeah. And it went for a good gain, but there weren't any huge plays in that game. I don't think there was maybe one play over 20 yards.
And I think they got back a little bit away from, and again, part of that is Stabby's fault for not finding open receivers, but we're too dependent on Erickson again. And that's the one thing we talked about is they've got to find a second receiver, whether it's Wainwright or Peavy or Wheelwright
you
or Frederick.
Adam Wainwright.
Wainwright, right? That's right. Wrong. That's wrong. Right.
two rights make a wrong.
Wheelwright, and like I say, and then even maybe a Frederick, the kid from Madison Memorial. So we got to find that backup, and I don't think the tight end's been a big part of the offense other than Traylor caught the touchdown pass last week.
He's had a couple of touchdowns.
He's a big target.
They got back to kind of the inverted wishbone and just kind of hammer the ball.
And I think it's just a matter of getting that offensive line experience because let's face it, you go into the Big Ten season, your offensive line's got to, they got to pound and be pretty durable.
And over in Whitewater this week, it's Whitewater got a test at Morningside, like you said last week. I think the rain kind of played a little bit of a role into that. But I also don't think it's bad for the Warhawks. They got a bit of a test instead of just winning all these games 80-3 before they go into conference play, where now in the past couple of years they've faced the tougher WIAC teams late in the schedule. Well, now you kick things right off against Platteville,
right?
Another ranked team at the Division III level. So I think it was good for them to have been tested and really to face a little bit of adversity going into the league
I totally
season.
agree, because I think if they'd have played another cupcake, it would have had an adverse effect, like you said, in the opener against Platteville, where, being game tested and playing a team that, they had division down, but they're still the number one team. So obviously they've got some talent. And Platteville will come in, the Pioneers will, they're pretty pass happy, and, I don't know how much the Warhawks have seen of that this year, but, defensively, they've been solid, and I think offensively they're starting to find themselves. Again, when you score 70 points in back-to-back games, it tells you a little bit more about the team you're playing than what your offense is capable of doing.
I think it was good. They had to go down and score basically in a 2-minute drill. I think
exactly.
They had 4 minutes left. But crunch time, they had to go down and get it done. They did. The defense came up with a big stop right before that to hold them to a field goal so that they could do that. I think, there were some moments where that you saw some hiccups that they just aren't normally having. When it came down to it, both sides of the ball got the job
They made
done.
the play, and for Kevin Bullis' sake, his first, what you would hope would be many signature wins, but a good win. I mean, not that a loss would have crushed them or anything, but they still have the nation's longest winning streak intact, and that's a pretty big deal. I mean, that encompasses all 4 divisions or however many there are. And for UW Whitewater to say that they have the longest current winning streak in all divisions of football, college football, that's pretty good stuff.
This should be their toughest test probably on the whole schedule against Platteville.
Yep.
And whoever wins that game has the driver's seat right away from week 1 of the WIAC season.
Yep. And again, I think in looking ahead, it sounds like Saturday going to be a little cool, but pretty dry conditions. And usually the Warhawks at home, it's pretty tough to bet against them. Let's put it that way.
Right. How about on the high school scene? We go to week 7. This is pretty much if you're in playoff contention, it's time to get it done.
Yep.
And for both Janesville schools, they've definitely reached that critical moment. You were at Parker last week. Their 3-game winning streak came to an end, and it sounded like not in a very good way. There was some discord on the sidelines and things like that, which you don't want to see.
Just a bizarre game that you just don't expect to, if you hearken back to the heyday of Parker football when Coach Dye took over and now he's an assistant, just some things going on that you just never expect to see. A lot of bickering on the sidelines between players. They've always had that work together, stay together mentality, and you didn't see that Friday night. And I think what puzzled me the most was some of the play calling on offense. Twice they got drives inside the 20-yard line and brought in their jumbo package, which is, Ed Jacobson and somebody else with Schumacher, the big fullback, and with Vance lined up behind him, and then ran outside. And both times they did it, they got stuffed. It took them out of really, any chance to go for it on fourth down, and weren't able to finish a drive. And especially to start the second half, they're down 7-3. They score on their opening drive. They're up 10-7 or 9-7, whatever the case might be, but they're ahead. Instead, they don't score, and things just look, out of sorts for Parker offensively, and I'm not used to seeing that.
I think that was kind of the way it was in week 2 when they played Janesville Craig too. Then they got in this 3-game winning streak, and everybody was happy, and we were all best friends, and things were going great. Well, the couple times they've really, and in week 1 it was against Middleton, so nobody really expected them to be in that game. So when they were pretty happy about it. Well, the 2 times they've kind of faced some adversity, they kind of crumbled under it a little bit.
Well, and the good thing was, it was great to see afterwards, was Clayton Krieger, the first-year coach, got that team together and said, look, because he saw it too. I don't think there's any doubt that people were aware of what was going on the sideline, and he said, look, you guys, all we have is each other. If we don't have that, then we might as well turn in our gear and call it a year, because we've got to rely on each other. So what they did is they took the team back to Parker, had the kids meet on their own with no coaches, and just let the 4 captains talk and try to get it squared away. And I ran into one of the players the other night, and I said, hey, did you guys get things squared away and talked out? And he goes, yep. He goes, we're good to go. So hopefully that's the case Friday night, because Parker's got to have this game. They got to have 2 of their last 3 with Sun Prairie. Memorial is going to be very good, very tough for them. And then you end up with Madison West, who probably is a little bit better than their 1-5 record would indicate.
Yeah, you got to win 2 of those 3, and you'd like to get
then,
this one under your belt.
And then you
at
probably
home.
Get Heartland Arrowhead in game 1, which would be great.
Hey, just getting back,
I know
would
it would be good
deal.
for the Vikes, or the Cougars for that matter, who
they've
have
got
to win their
all
last
of them.
3. Yep,
and they've got they've got a tough road to hoe to get there.
And I talked to Ben this morning, and Ben said it's the same thing. He says we've got to get our defense off the field. He said our offense has played well enough to keep us in games and give us a chance, but he said we just can't get off the field defensively. We had 3rd and long last week, and Sun Prairie was able to convert, and he said it's just a matter of just not making plays. And we've talked about that ad nauseum, that they're just not tackling well. And Ben said it's a problem that if they don't address it, then they won't see the postseason.
Well, and I mean, to look at the schedule that's left, it's a bit daunting.
It is.
You got Memorial, West, and Middleton still on the schedule, but I guess what you have to do at this point is just take it one game at a time.
One game at a time, and trust me, Memorial, since they've got everybody back, has probably been the best team in the conference. They were shorthanded the first 2 weeks, lost them both, beat a Middleton team that we thought was getting better last week, and with Emmett Enright at quarterback, he leads. He and Jake Benzing may be 2 of the top passers in the state as far as yards. And he's got Alvarez's grandson, Ferguson, at 1 wide out, and forget the other kid's name for them, but Ben said it's a pretty good 1-2 punch at wide out, and he said we're going to have trouble matching up with them. So they've got to be able to get a push up front and get some pressure on Enright so he doesn't have time to sit back there and throw.
How about other matchups around the area that you're looking at?
Well, I'll be at Bigfoot for Clinton at Bigfoot. Both teams postseason eligible because they've got 3 wins in their conference. But interesting stat, Clinton hasn't beaten Bigfoot since 2002. So you're going back a few years, the last time the Cougars were able to win. And obviously this year, I would think two pretty even matched teams. And I would expect a pretty good game. And
they're basically playing for second place, although I guess they still could wind up with a share of the conference title with Broadhead Judah. Both teams lost to Broadhead Judah in overtime games. So you would think that really all 3 of those teams would match up very well together.
Right, and that's the thing. Let's say Bigfoot wins this week and Broadhead loses next week in the crossover game to Evansville. And all of a sudden you've got co-conference champions in the South, which that's something you and I don't like, but hey, that's the way it is, and that's what they decided on, so it is what it is. But, I think the other game to look at in that conference is Broadhead at Turner. Turner, still 2 wins away from a automatic, or 1 win away from an automatic berth, and, the Trojans certainly, unlike years past, can at least play with Broadhead Judah. Not saying they're going to beat them, but I think you and I both agree they can play with them.
Well, I'll be interested to see. They needed some fourth quarter
heroics
comebacks to beat Palmyra last week, which you don't really expect to see if a team's going to hang with the top teams in the South there. But you never know.
It's at home. Again, can Seth Smith get on track and Loomis, and can they get some things done, or is Broadhead just going to pound on them and dictate things, up front?
Congrats to Milton, another big win. They go to Portage this week on a crossover that doesn't really count, so it's kind of hard to break that game down. The Lakes, Badger,
bizarre loss to Wilmot 14-0. Not that they lost, but the fact that they didn't score.
Right.
Wilmot, they hadn't been world beaters on defense. And I think the one thing this week is you look at Delavan Darien, they've got to run the table like Janesville Craig. They've got to win their last 3. Again, they got off to the good start with the 2 non-conference wins, but kind of taken a tumble.
Ran out of steam a little bit.
In the conference, and that's a good conference. Waterford, Union Grove, Badger, Wilmot, those teams are all going to be in the playoffs, and it's just for the talent that Delavan Darien has this year. It's a tough year because of the strength of that conference.
You can follow along at GazetteExtra.com Friday night. Tim Seaman will bring you all the updated scores on Twitter as well, and we'll have coverage from a couple different games around the area, and we'll be able to break down who will be meeting up Week 8, Week 9 in these Rock Valley crossover games, because those won't be decided until all the standings are completely finalized. We do know Evansville, Albany at Broadhead Judah.
Evansville, Albany, yep. That's the only one that is etched in stone thus far.
And
that'll be a rematch of an overtime
14-12
Evansville win, or not overtime, but a win.
Close game in Week 2 in the non-conference game, but pretty intriguing. We got the Jets at home this weekend.
Jets at home against the unbeaten Fairbanks Ice Dogs. Haven't lost yet.
No.
Nope.
I bet they lose one this weekend.
You think they're on a bus right now on their way down here?
I don't think they bust that trip.
Oh, they don't bust from Fairbanks?
They get a flight down for that one. They might even have stayed over after the showcase, probably.
Well, they probably did. Life's good then if you're in Fairbanks.
Well, Jack LaFontaine, the Jets goalie, I think was named the Division 7 second star and named to some scouting services on the NHL radar this week. So I think he hands them their first loss.
I'll give you a pass on Friday, but Saturday night fans, get onto the ice arena. The Badgers play at 11. You can see the best team in the NHL so far in Fairbanks, and get yourself and the family and get down to the ice arena and watch some good NAHL hockey.
It'll be my first chance to see him live, so I'm looking forward to that. Yep. And we'll see what the rest of the season has in store.
Right.
Thanks for joining us. You can let us know what you think of the show. Give us a comment on here at GazetteExtra.com or YouTube or iTunes. You can email us at sports@GazetteExtra.com or find us on Twitter or harass Andrew Ryder through many different ways. Exactly. If you just Google his name, I'm sure they all pop up.
Take care, everybody.
See you next week.